So I began this journey of trying to figure out how to do things. I was using an AI chatbot called Pi to help me, and it was really helpful. And I really started thinking about as I build out my coaching program, the 26-week program, what would be a good way to incorporate that into this? And a few weeks ago, I got an email from the folks that do Pi that said they now had an API. So I started thinking about that, and then I figured out what it was going to cost to build a front end for that and make it work. And I said, well, it's not something, Pi is kind of based on personal stuff. It's not necessarily based on business related stuff. So that was kind of my first step. And then I started to do some research. And I'm more emotional when it comes to making these kind of decisions. But I said I need to put some logic to this and understand what the market's doing and understand if there's a product there. Now, I'd seen through Wingman that the people who were enrolled in Wingman and using the chatbot on GPT were really seeing breakthroughs. I mean, enormous breakthroughs, both personally and professionally. So I knew there was a case for saying that this might work. So I started looking and I found some good reference materials. I found some studies, and I found that there were people out there that had actually studied, using a business coach or not using a business coach. And I think, overall, the coaching business, the industry, when I got into it in 2010 with Bob Proctor, I I think the industry is right around $1 billion. And this year, they're expecting the coaching industry in general to be about $2.8 billion. So it's grown more than 2.5 times in the last 15 years. And I'm not going to get deep into that, but it's just amazing to me how much it's grown. And I think even with the pandemic, which really pushed a lot of things to online, there was still a case for online before that. When I worked for Bob, I was doing phone calls and Zoom meetings, that sort of thing. That we're using Skype at the time. And we were doing it face to face over Skype. And that was good, but it was not really online coaching per se. It was using a tool to connect with your client. And it worked out great because you could go all over the world. But what's the value of the coaching versus the cost of the coaching? Now, that coaching was really expensive because you were with a name brand person who was a guru in that field. And what I saw anyway was a lot of people couldn't afford it. So I started there. I started to say, okay, what's the return on investment? What do people get when they get into business coaching specifically? And I found some studies, and the studies were pretty good. I read through a bunch of stuff. I've got it all on my screen, and I'm looking at the summaries of it. But one of the things that it pointed out that the ROI Institute conducted an independent study that showed participants returned about 130% of their investment when they did coaching for their business. And that was accomplished through transformational breakthroughs. So whether they'd reached a plateau in sales or they were having difficulty making decisions to get things going in the right direction, it really helped people do it. So the conclusion through the Does Coaching Help was the evidence strongly supports your theory that successful small business owners can use coaching to overcome growth plateaus. The documented cases show a measure of results between 30 and 150% sales growth, with business breaking through revenue ceilings and achieving sustainable growth patterns. The coaching addressed common plateaus like lack of systems, delegation of fears, and strategic clarity. Those are all things that are really important for a small business owner. You know, we all start our business as an entrepreneur with a dream. And that dream is to do whatever it is we want to do. In my case, my last endeavor was to become an insurance agent and have a residual income business. We get to a point there where the initial momentum stops. We go, we've got this great idea. Maybe we've got a little bit of help. We got somebody to help train us and get us going. And then we're into it 2, 3, 4, 5 years. And that initial momentum kind of works into a daily grind, for lack of a better word. And when that daily grind happens, it becomes more and more difficult to keep it moving. So you hit this plateau. And I know I did it at about 4 years in the insurance business. I hit a plateau where my business wasn't growing, and I really needed to break through. I needed to get up higher because I wasn't quite to the point in that business at that time. I said, if I could be making $50,000 clear a year, that would allow me to say I'm a full-time insurance agent and I can do the things I need to do. Well, I figured out I had to do it. And I figured out the only way I was going to do it, because I didn't have a lot of money at the time, was to do it with a mastermind group. And I started a mastermind group of, I think there was 5 other business owners. And by sitting there and bouncing things off each other for a couple hours once a week over breakfast, I was able to really break through and see that the mastermind really was powerful. Started giving me some ideas. I started saying, okay, I got to go hire people. I got to go find independent agents to work for me. The ideas that I got out of that, and the ideas that the guys that I was masterminding with were getting out of it, was really, it was powerful. And we did that for a couple of years. And I think all of us had pretty good growth coming out of that period. And we all came out with new ideas. And this story, this conclusion of the case studies that I looked at really does prove that. And there's truth. I mean, 130% of what you invest in coaching, you get back. So it's a pretty good return. Now, the other thing that I did was I wanted to find out if anybody was using AI chatbots for coaching. And I know that there are people that are. But I wanted to find out the advantages and see if I could really look at that advantage and start looking at how to build this thing I was going to build. I wasn't even sure what it looked like at this point, but this was a couple of weeks ago. I mean, this wasn't years ago. This was maybe 10 days ago. And I went back and looked at what the supporting factors are. What are the definite benefits of having AI coaching versus, a regular coach, or with a regular coach even. So there were 5 things that came up. Goal attainment was the first one. And the study, they've got about 20 case studies here, shows that statistical improvement over goal attainment when using the AI coaching chatbot. Now, I think that's probably easy to understand because it's more, it's asking you questions and helping you to set better goals. If you just say, I want to earn $1 million, hard goal to reach because you don't have a path to lead to that. So, if I were coaching you, I would be asking you questions like, how are you going to do that? What's the first step? How do we move towards that? How long is it going to take? How do you see it working? We're going to have all those things that, in this case, the chatbot's going to ask. So high engagement. AI coaching chatbots get a higher completion rate when they were doing this than traditional email-based coaching, and even in-person coaching. That about 83% of the people completed the complete course. Now, if you think about courses you might have bought or courses I've bought, if I was sitting at home in Vancouver, I'd have a rack of books behind me and a rack of programs. And a lot of those I never completed because I just burned out on them. It took too long and it was too much work. So the high engagement keeps people moving. Now, if you added email to that and added engagement so people go together, you up it another 20%. So you go from like 80 to another 20%, 16 points. You might be in the 90% engagement. That'd be really good. So that's a good thing to know. And then comparable efficacy, I can't even say that word, efficiency. Uh, AI chatbot coaches are designed for goal attainment, and comparable to using humans, they keep you on track a little better because people have a way of getting off track and makes sense. You've got somebody that's got a one track, not necessarily a one track mind, but they've got one purpose, and that's to keep you on track. So that's a good thing to know. We're getting some good information here that helps us build this chatbot. And then cost-effective scaling. So as a coach, how do I scale my business? I've only got so many hours a day. I've only got so many hours in that day that I want to coach, because it takes time to coach. It takes prep time. It takes time to do follow-up. It takes, there's a lot of things. For every hour I spend coaching online, I probably spend another close to hour getting ready and another 45 minutes to an hour following up, doing the things I need to do, plus running my business. So, I might only be able to coach 5 or 6 people in hour-long sessions. If I break those down into smaller sessions, which are actually better in my mind, I can do a few more. I might be able to do 8, and then I'd have more time with those 20 to 30-minute sessions to follow up and do a better job with people. And really, what happens on an hour-long coaching session is you run out of things to talk about, or you can't get enough information. Then you start talking about the family and the kids. And those are all important, but they're not necessarily getting to the point where the person needs to go in coaching. So finally, the last thing in the whole AI coaching idea is that it's available 24/7. Now, I woke up at a little bit after 4 this morning and started talking to my chatbot. Now, I had 3 or 4 questions in my mind, but in the old days, I would have had that pad of paper next to the bed. I would have turned on the light. I would have written down the things that I'm thinking about, turned off the light, rolled over, gone back to sleep for an hour or 2, and then started on them in the morning. Well, in this case, I actually talked to the chatbot. We discussed two projects that I needed some help on, and the answers to those projects, the ideas, were waiting for me when I got out of bed this morning. So I know the 2 or 3 companies I need to call today to look at doing one project, and on the other one, I got information that I needed for another project I'm working on. It's been summarized, and I've got it ready to go now. So those things happened not necessarily while I was sleeping, but they certainly happened at a time where I wanted to do something else. I wanted to sleep, right? So I think those are all good things. Those are all positive, and they always seem to lead to that coaching works. Chatbot coaching, for the limited time it's been around, is working. And then finally, I got down to wanting to know if there was any studies out there that show the difference between chatbot coaching, which would be like typing into the computer. You type your question into a chatbot, and it would respond to you by typing back, so you get words on the screen, and using voice feedback. So using my phone to talk and getting voice feedback from the AI. And there's not a whole lot there, because it's really a fairly new thing. There's only one study that's been done, and it came out with the things that were positive. Was by Hassoun study, and they interviewed and coached people with voice versus chatbot, compared them, see how they did. They had definitely a higher response rate, and they definitely had better results with voice. So higher effectiveness. They showed there was voice coaching was more effective than text for increasing people's ability to do things, whether it was physical activity or actually completing an action. More natural interaction. You can just talk versus having to sit there and think about what you have to type and then type it. And then the third thing was emotional resonance. Voice chat can convey emotion and create a sense of realness that text has a hard time doing. So based on all this, I came up with the idea for Navigator Launchpad and using voice coaching and conversations back and forth between the chatbot, in this case I call it Coach Jeff, between Coach Jeff and you, the client. And I decided to get this thing rolling. And this was 2 weeks ago. And based on where we're at today, I've now got a team working on building the chatbot itself. And I've been doing a lot of the marketing stuff and everything else while they're doing that. And that chatbot, we'll have it sometime next week, probably early next week. We'll have that chatbot into a beta test mode. And I think the beta test will be fun to see how it works. I have an idea it's going to work pretty good. These guys seem to know what they're doing. So we'll have that out there. And then we've got the goal of launching the first group on September 16th. We'll open up registration for it on the 5th of September. But we'll launch it on September 16th and show people what it can do. Now, the hybrid idea, which I think there were a couple additions to that in the studies that I read through. And hybrid means that you're using a chatbot and in-person coaching. And that seemed to be more powerful too. So that's what we're going to do. This program, Navigator Launchpad, will have weekly coaching sessions for the 30 days that we start. And then we'll have the AI chatbot that's available 24/7. And we'll see how it goes. I'm excited about the whole thing. It's really got me flying and going, and it's going to be fun. And I think we're going to have a really good time with it. But I think it's going to be really beneficial and really transformational for business owners that want to either get out of the rut they're in or off the plateau they're on, or just want to really increase their business by, who knows, 30, 50%. That would be all right. And I think it's going to be based on my coaching, because that's what we're training this chatbot to be, is a business coach, and based on my experience and the things I think are important. So here we go. I'm going to keep reminding you and showing you what I'm doing here on this live broadcast, and just give you the ideas that I'm going through. This was a little bit longer today, but I wanted to talk about some of the research, because I don't always do the research, and sometimes it bites me because I don't necessarily have the right ideas. But everything I've done on this one shows that coaching, one, is good and it works, and two, that AI can be used efficiently and effectively in coaching, and that it's more powerful to use a voice chatbot than it is to use the typing type chatbot, traditional. Anyway, that's what I was thinking about today. Thanks for your time, for looking, and we'll keep you updated as we go. I plan to do these every day, so if you want to subscribe to the streams here, they're in the workflow. They're in the channel, and we'll certainly be posting so you can see how we're doing and what we're doing. Thanks so much. Take care. Have a great day, and we'll see you soon.